And we want to welcome all who are watching right now, our Sault Ste. Marie campus, Alpena campus, TV audience, radio audience, online campus, watch groups all the way down to the Tall Timber Church in Florida. We are so glad that you are here. Well, take your Bibles, if you would, open them to the book of 1 Samuel. If you're using a device, power up to 1 Samuel. And we introduced a new series last week that's really going to take us all the way up to Thanksgiving, and we're going to be walking through the first 12 chapters of 1 Samuel. And I've called the series Influence. Now, the reason I called it Influence is because in this series, we're going to see a lot of people who influence others either positively or negatively. We're going to learn from them. But why is that important for each of us? And I stressed this to you last week because you don't have to be a leader to be influential. The truth of the matter is every single one of you influence somebody on a daily basis. You influence every person you have an interaction with. They either walk away better or not better, one of the two, because of your influence, and we're going to see a lot about that in this series. So we introduced it all to you last week, and today we're going to get into the series proper. I've entitled today's message, Hope for Women Who Hurt. Now, my original title wasn't that. I decided to be nice. My original title was called When You're Married to a Jerk. That was my original title, okay? And, or you could just call it Ay, because every time we see this man Elkanah do something or say something, we're going to go, ay. It's incredible. Husbands, I'm so glad you're here, and you're going to be glad you're here too, because you're all going to look good. You're all going to look good compared to Elkanah, so it's going to be a good day for all of us. I want to start by talking about the setting of Hannah. We're going to look at this woman named Hannah who will become the mother of Samuel. And we're going to see, though, that her story starts out with deep hurt. It's not just one thing. There's 7 deep hurts in her life we're going to see in this story, all right? And so we see the setting of Hannah beginning in chapter 1, verse number 1. Now, last week, I gave you a challenge, and that challenge was to carve out 20 to 30 minutes of time and to open your Bible, sit down, and read the first 12 chapters of 1 Samuel in one setting out loud. And I know many of you did it because I got great feedback, but I had several people who said to me, I almost quit after verse 1. All right? And if you did the challenge, you know why that's true. If not, you'll learn right now. Because here's 1 Samuel 1, verse 1. Now there was a certain man from Ramathaim Sophim, from the hill country of Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephraimite. And some of you are like, I'm not reading anymore. That's enough right there. All right? Now, after his genealogy, what do we learn about him? What's the first thing God wants us to know about this guy named Elkanah? He had 2 wives. Ay. Turn to the person next to you and say, this is not going to end well. I just know it. All right. The name of one was Hannah, and since she's mentioned first, we can surmise she would have been his first wife. And the other was Peninnah. Now, it's not, I had a first wife later on, she died or divorced, I had a second wife. This is 2 wives at the same time, all right? Now, what do we know about the wives? We know that Peninnah, the second wife, had children, but Hannah, the first wife, had no children. So let's stop there for a second, make sure we get the setting down. And the first thing we're going to see are the consequences of the wives. Because there are 3 main characters as the story opens up. Character number 1 is Elkanah. He's the husband. His name means chosen of God. His first wife, who will become the mother of Samuel, her name is Hannah. Her name means grace, and she will fit her name well. The third wife is Peninnah. Her name means pearl, gem, and she will not fit her name well. But those are the 3 characters in the story. Now, before we go any further, let's talk about the elephant in the passage. You've heard the old saying term, elephant in the room. You know, when there's a topic and it's there and everybody knows it's there, but everybody's avoiding it because it's uncomfortable. I'm thinking about doing a series called The Elephant in the Passage and just looking at all the passages where there's this big uncomfortable elephant that we like to just pretend's not there. This is one of them. And the elephant we have to deal with before we get into the story is the elephant of polygamy. Elkanah had 2 wives at the same time. So, is the Bible condoning polygamy? So let me give you just 3 thoughts and we'll move on. Thought number 1 is this. Polygamy does not fit God's formula for marriage. God is the one who creates marriage. God sets the formula back when he does that in Genesis chapter 2. And he says in verse 24, for this reason, a man, one man, shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and the 2 become one flesh. The 2 become one. It's not the 3 become one flesh. It's not the 4 become one flesh. It's not the 28 become one flesh. The 2 become one flesh. So polygamy does not fit God's formula for marriage. Second point I would point out is this. Just because some Bible characters practiced polygamy does not condone polygamy. Yes, there are some Bible characters, including Elkanah, who practiced polygamy. But just because a Bible character does something in the Bible doesn't mean we should do it. Example, right? Noah was a drunkard. That doesn't mean we should all go out and get plastered after church, right? Because, well, Noah was a drunkard. Abraham was a liar. That doesn't mean we should be dishonest. It's okay to be dishonest. David was an adulterer and a murderer. That is certainly not okay. So just because a Bible character is seen doing something in the Bible doesn't mean the Bible condones it. And here's the third point I would point out. Every time in the Bible, every time without exception, we see polygamy, it always results in a truckload of dark trials. Every time. It never goes well. It didn't go well for Abraham. It didn't go well for Jacob. It didn't go well for Gideon. It didn't go well for David. And it certainly did not go well for Solomon. So, that's the elephant in the passage. Now, let's move back to the story. The first thing we see after the consequences of the wives is the closing of the womb. And we learn that these 2 wives, Hannah, the first wife, is barren. She cannot have children. Peninnah, the second wife, can have children. All right? Now, if you were here last Sunday, and we'll see the verse in a second, but we really dealt with it last Sunday, so I'm not going to do a lot of repeat of it today. We will see in just a minute that the reason Hannah was barren was because the Lord had closed her womb. That's a difficult passage. But we talked about the sovereignty of God. What is the sovereignty of God? It's this, that God is always in control. He's not just in control in the joys of your life. Listen, he is just as much in control in the deepest sorrows of your life. He doesn't just have a plan for you when things go good. He also has a plan for you when things don't go good. And we talked about that last week. Now, this is what's going to be the foundation for much of Hannah's hurt. Hurt number 1, she's barren. Now, if you've ever dealt with that, you know that that is enough hurt for a lifetime. That is enough hurt for a lifetime right there. But that's just one of 7 hurts she's going to deal with. The second hurt she deals with is this. In the Jewish culture of that day, it was believed, this isn't biblical, this isn't true, but it was the belief. The belief was if you were barren, it's because God cursed you. You've done something really wrong and God cursed you. Now we know that's not true, but that was the belief system. So for Hannah, not only is she dealing with the fact that she desperately desires a baby, but she can't have one, but on top of that, everyone around her would see her as cursed. It would be the glares, the snickers, the jokes. In fact, she probably, and I think we'll see this later on in the passage, she probably sees herself as cursed, because that was the Jewish belief. So that adds to her hurt. And if that's not bad enough, her husband brings a second wife into the home to do for him what Hannah could not do. Now, by the way, though that's not biblical, in the culture of that day, the way they kind of did in that Jewish culture was, if after 10 years of marriage, so more than likely Hannah and Elkanah were married for 10 years, Hannah doesn't conceive. So then a husband was allowed to do one of two things. He could divorce her, or in the culture of that day, he could just marry a second wife and bring her into home to have kids. What does Elkanah do? He doesn't divorce her. We're going to learn in a minute. It's going to say he loves her. But in that day, having children was a high priority. And so Elkanah brings a second wife into the home, not because he doesn't love Hannah, but because he needs to have children. So he brings a second wife. Now imagine the increased hurt now in Hannah's life. She's barren. She's seen as cursed. Now she has to share her husband with a second woman who can do for him what she can't. And if that's not bad enough, the second woman he marries, she's like fertile myrtle. I mean, she's popping out kids. She has many boys, many girls. So Hannah is faced every day with all of that hurt, every single day of her life. Now, in a little bit, we're going to see it's going to multiply even more, but that's the starting point. Now, before we move on and see more of Hannah's hurt, let me just make one point out that I think's worthy of pointing out. I always like to, when I read the Bible, look for patterns. Does God work in a pattern? And there are times you can see a pattern. And one of the patterns I believe you see is that God uses barrenness in a great way. He does. In the Bible, a woman named Sarah was barren. But ultimately, God opens her womb and she has Isaac. Rachel was barren. But ultimately, God opens her womb and she has Joseph. The wife of a man named Manoah, she's not even mentioned by name in the Bible, she was barren. But ultimately, God opens her womb and she has a baby boy and names him Samson. And in the New Testament, you have a woman named Elizabeth, barren right into her elderly years, but ultimately, God opens her womb, and she gives birth to a boy who becomes John the Baptist. So there's a pattern in the Bible. Now, let's move on and see the sorrow even intensify more with Hannah, okay? We know she's barren. We know she feels cursed. We know she's sharing her husband with another wife. She knows that wife is doing for her husband what she cannot do. All right? Let's keep reading and see the sorrow of Hannah beginning in verse number 3. All right? Now this man, Elkanah, would go up from his city, and notice how often he does it. Don't miss this. Yearly. So what's about to happen happens every year. How many years has it been going on? Well, we're going to learn in a second that by this time, Peninnah has multiple sons and multiple daughters. So it's been many years, right? This has happened yearly. He would go to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. Now, let me point out a couple things for those of you that want to learn more about the Bible. Why does he go to Shiloh? In the New Testament, when they went to worship, they'd go to the temple in Jerusalem. Well, there was no temple yet. So there was this temporary kind of portable temple they called the tabernacle. And at this point, it was in Shiloh. Shiloh was about 15 miles from where Elkanah lived. So they would go every year to Shiloh, to the tabernacle for this feast, this festival. But notice one other thing. This is cool. What does verse number 3 call God? What name of God is used in verse 3? He worshiped and sacrificed to the Lord of hosts. It's a term that literally means commander of heavenly armies. Or as modern song put it, the God of angel armies. That's what this means. In other words, he is the God who is the commander in chief of the biggest, most powerful, undefeatable army in the universe. The army of the angels. Now, why do I point that out? It's going to play a big part, but here's why. That title for God is used in the Bible 281 times. This is the first one. This is the first time. It'll get used 280 more times, but this is the first time you see this title for God in the Bible. Hopefully you'll learn something. Here we go. Let's keep going. He would go there to worship. And the two sons of Eli, that's the high priest, and their names were Hophni and Phinehas, were priests to the Lord there. Now, if you were here last week for the introduction, we talked about these guys. Remember, we said that at this point, Israel was at a spiritual low point. It was the end of the period of the Judges. And Judges ends with the verse, there was no king in Israel and everyone did what was right in their own eyes. There was spiritual corruption, and it started right with the spiritual leaders. These two boys, Hophni and Phinehas, they are the main priests, the main spiritual leaders in Israel. And the Bible's going to say, as we continue in the series, they were worthless. They did great evil in the sight of God, and they did not know the Lord. No wonder Israel is at a spiritual low point. We won't see them the rest of the day, but tuck that away for coming weeks. Now, verse 4. When the day came that Elkanah sacrificed at the feast. Now, let me stop right there. This would have been what we would call a fellowship sacrifice, fellowship offering or peace offering. And what you would do is you would bring an animal and you would sacrifice it. A third of the animal was sacrificed on the altar. A third of the meat went to the priests. And a third of the meat you now used basically to have a barbecue with your family at the festival. You'd have a big barbecue. So he goes, he sacrifices. Now, it says, when the day came that Elkanah sacrificed, okay, he would do all that, and he would take the meat that's for them, and he would cook it, he would barbecue it, and when it was done, he would give portions of the meat to Peninnah, his wife, to all her sons, notice the plural, she had more than one son, all her sons, and her daughters, plural, but to Hannah, he would give a double portion of meat. For he loved Hannah. But the Lord had closed her womb. Her rival, Peninnah, however, would provoke Hannah bitterly to irritate her because the Lord had closed her womb. Ha ha, you're cursed. Ha ha, you're cursed. That kind of thing. And this happened how often? Year after year after year. As often as she went up to the house of the Lord at Shiloh, Peninnah would provoke Hannah. The result is that Hannah wept and would not eat. Then Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart sad? Am I not better than having 10 sons? Let's talk about it. We start with the insults of her rival. So here's Peninnah. And Peninnah is the first trash talker in the Bible. She is talking trash to Hannah. And this adds to Hannah's hurt, doesn't it? She's barren. She's seen as cursed. Her husband brings in a second wife who can do for her what she can't, can do for him what she can't. That second wife produces children. And now, if that's not bad enough, this second wife has no compassion on Hannah, no sympathy. She trash talks her. She verbally abuses her. I want to pause right there. Because when you read the story, it's easy to see Hannah as the good wife and Peninnah as the what? Bad wife. In fact, I listened to many sermons this week that basically that's what they did. Hannah's the good wife, Peninnah, the bad wife. But I want to pause. I want to say this to you. It's easy, I think, to put our feet in the sandals of Hannah and feel her hurt. But have you ever taken time to put your feet in the sandals of Peninnah? Folks, listen. Hannah is not the only hurting woman in the story. Think about Peninnah. She's looked forward her whole life to the day her dad would say, I found a husband for you. Because that's how they did it back then, right? But the husband that her dad picks for her doesn't really love Peninnah. In fact, in the story, it says Elkanah loved Hannah. Not once does it say Elkanah loved Peninnah. He did not marry Peninnah because he fell in love with her. He married Peninnah for what reason? For her womb. That's all. That's all. He just married her for her womb. You think Peninnah didn't know that? Can you imagine that hurt if you're Peninnah? And not only that, it's clear in the story that Elkanah publicly shows that he loves Hannah more. He gives all of them food, but he gives Hannah double what he gave Peninnah. Now, there's something you have to understand about favoritism. When you're on the short end of the stick, when it comes to favoritism, you don't really develop a hatred toward the person who's showing the favoritism. Who do you develop the hatred towards? The person getting the favoritism. If you don't think that's true, go back and reread the Old Testament story of Joseph and his brothers and how his dad publicly favored Joseph and that made the other brothers hate Joseph. Can you imagine being Peninnah? You're in a loveless marriage. You're only being used for your womb. And it's very obvious. Your husband loves the other woman, not you. Hannah is not the only hurting woman in the story. And there's a principle there I think we need to learn. It's an old adage, and it's true. Hurting people hurt people. Hurting people hurt other people. When somebody hurts you unjustly, hurts you unfairly, chances are really good that person who hurts you is a hurting person. And if we will keep that in mind, maybe, just maybe, we can have a positive influence even on the person who's hurting us. Maybe, just maybe, we can show a little more compassion towards them, a little more mercy towards them. Hurting people hurt people. So here's Hannah. Her hurt is multiplying, isn't it? She's barren, seen as cursed. Husband brings in a second wife. Second wife produces children. And that second wife verbally abuses her. But there's going to be two more hurts. I think hurt number 6 may have been the deepest one. And we'll call it the insensitivity of her husband. Look at it. You see it first in his conduct. In that passage I read for you, what did he do? He knows Hannah is hurting. He knows Hannah is sad. He's no dummy. He knows why. He knows it's because she's barren. She's seen as cursed. And he kind of made the problem even deeper when he brought in another woman. He knows that rivalry's going on, that verbally's going on. He doesn't seem to step in to stop it at all. He's looking for a quick fix. He's looking for a quick fix. And so he decides to try gift giving. Now, some of you ladies are going, please don't knock that. I like it when my husband apologizes that way, right? Okay. And that's all right. That's all right. That's all right. It's good. But look at it. He doesn't bring her flowers. He doesn't bring her chocolate. He doesn't go down to Hogan's Jewelers and buy a nice necklace. What does he bring her? Meat. Baby, I know you're sad. Here, have more steak. He does. Now, there's an old adage that says that for many men, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, and there's probably truth to that. That is not always true with women. Maybe some women, but not all women, right? This guy doesn't get it. Here, baby, have more meat. Are we okay now? Want some steak sauce? But worse than the conduct came his comments. And his comments came in a series of questions. The first three questions are pretty much synonymous. Why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart sad? Now, if he doesn't know the answer to this question, that's a problem, wouldn't you say? So here's Hannah crying at the feast, and like most husbands, that makes Elkanah uncomfortable. Every husband's uncomfortable when their wife cries, right? That's just true. And so he's again looking for the quick fix. Why are you crying? Now, men, that's probably not a good question to ask your wife. But ladies, do you know why men will ask you that question? Do you know why your husbands will say, why are you crying? Because when your husband, this is gold, ladies, this is gold. When your husband sees you crying, the first thought that goes through their mind is, what did I do now? That's the first thought that goes through their mind. They're looking for the quick fix. Why are you crying? Tell me what the problem is. Me, man, me, fix it. You quit crying. We all live happily ever after. That's what his mindset is, right? But then you discover something. You discover this amazing fact. I cannot wrap my head around it, but I accept it. And here it is. Women don't always know why they're crying. I don't get it, right? I have never in my life cried for no reason. I have never done it. Women do, right? It's true. Or they'll say this. Your wife ever said this to you? I just needed a what? A good cry. I just needed a good cry. Folks, I'm 60 years old. I've never had a good cry. Never had it. Don't know what it is. To me, the two words do not go together. Good cry, that's an oxymoron. That's like airline food. It doesn't go together. That's like country music. Doesn't go together, you know? It just doesn't. It doesn't. He's not helping. He's looking for the quick fix. Then, if that's not bad enough, what does he say to his wife? We read it. Oh, baby, listen, I know you're sad. I wish you quit crying. I know you can't have kids. I get that. I know everybody thinks you're cursed. I get that. I know there's another woman you're sharing with. No big deal. I know she kind of verbally abuses you. But listen, oh love of my life, I don't understand why you're sad. After all, you've got me. That's what he says. Am I not better to you than 10 sons? Ladies, if you're sitting right now next to your husband, I want you to do me a favor. I want you right now to lean over, kiss him on the cheek, and say, you're not so bad. Your husband's looking good, ain't he? You know what I love about Hannah? She is a picture of self-control. Because did you notice in the text? She doesn't answer the question. Not going to answer it. Do you see her hurt multiplying? She's barren. Seen as cursed because she's barren. Sharing her husband with another wife. That wife's able to produce a bunch of children. That wife verbally abuses her, and her husband is totally insensitive. So what does Hannah do? What Hannah does next, almost, if I just say it, comes across trite. It almost comes across trite. It just seems so trite when someone is in that deep of a hurt to say, you just need to pray. Doesn't that sound trite? I want you to understand something. The only path that can turn your hurt into hope is prayer. It's the only path. It's not trite. Peter said, cast all your cares on him because he cares for you. Paul said, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And if you'll do that, the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your heart, that's your feelings, and your mind, that's your thinking in Christ Jesus. It's not trite. Prayer is the only path you have at your disposal to turn your hurt into hope. That's what Hannah does. Notice her supplication. Let's read beginning in verse number 9. Then Hannah rose after eating and drinking in Shiloh, and Eli the priest was sitting on the seat by the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. And Hannah, look at how she's described, greatly distressed. You can understand that now, can't you? That sure makes sense now, knowing all her hurt, right? She prays to the Lord and she weeps bitterly. Now notice, she's not bitter at God. She's weeping bitter. She is pouring her heart to the Lord. She is pouring out her hurt to the Lord. She's doing what Peter says later in there. She's casting all of her cares on him. As she's doing it, it says, she made a vow and said, I love this next phrase. What does she call God? Lord of hosts. What did we just learn that means? I am in deep stress. I am in deep sorrow. I am in deep hurt, but you are the God of angel armies. I told you the last time we saw that a few verses ago was the first time God was ever called that in the Bible. Listen, Hannah's the first person to ever call him that. Hannah's the first person in the Bible to, in the midst of her hurt, say, I'm putting my trust in the God who is the commander and chief of angel armies. I love that. She says, if you'll indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant, that tells me she saw herself as cursed. And if you'll remember me and not forget me. I love her honesty. Can I ask you a question? Don't answer out loud, just in your heart. Have you ever felt like God forgot you? Have you ever felt like God forgot you? That's how Hannah feels. Oh God, please remember me. You're the God of angel armies. Please remember me. And she says, if you'll give your maidservant a son, I'll give him back to you all the days of his life. A razor will never come on his head. I don't have time to explain that. That was called a Nazirite vow. It was a way of somebody, usually temporarily, this was going to be lifetime, really consecrating themselves totally to God. What does Hannah do? Hannah, at this point, is putting her trust in the sovereignty of God, the God of angel armies. It's as if Hannah's saying, God, I don't understand why I'm in this situation. I don't like it that I'm in this situation. But I believe you are the God of angel armies. I believe you are in control, even though my life seems out of control. And I choose to trust you. You would hope at this point, would you not, that things get better for Hannah? You know something I've learned in my life? when I truly get to the point that I can trust God with something I don't like, it often gets worse before it gets better. Have you noticed that? Look what happens to Hannah. She's going to have a seventh hurt. This one won't come at the hands of Peninnah. This one will not come at the hands of her husband. This time, her hurt will come at the hands of her pastor. I know that's hard for you to imagine, a pastor disappointing you. But her hurt will come from a pastor. Look at it. Verse 12. Now it came about, as Hannah continued praying before the Lord, that Eli, the high priest, her pastor, is watching her. He's watching her mouth. Why is he drawn to her mouth? Here's why. As for Hannah, she was speaking in her heart. When you speak in your heart, can I hear you? No, it's silent, isn't it? She's speaking to God in her heart silently. Her lips are moving. She's mouthing the words, but no words are coming out. So what does her pastor immediately conclude? Again, she was speaking her heart, only her lips were moving. Her voice was not heard. So Eli thought she was what? Drunk. Question. Was Hannah drunk? No. No. Eli makes a huge error. An error I believe you and I probably make on a daily basis. I know I do. I catch myself all the time. What does Eli do? Follow me. If you're going to influence people, you got to understand this. Eli sees something, and without knowing the facts, does he know the facts at that point? No. What does he do? He tells himself a story. What story does he tell himself? She's drunk. Did he have facts to back that up? No. He sees her lips moving, no words coming out. And to give Eli a little credit, remember how spiritually low people were at that point? Chances are good at that feast, a lot of people were drunk. He was used to seeing it. But he tells himself a story. How often do you and I do that? Oh, I know why they looked at me that way. You do? Oh, I know what she meant by that comment. Are you sure? It happens. Someone will say to me after church, they'll look at me with a stern voice, I need to see you this week. Great. Call Debbie, make an appointment. God, please don't let them call. Right? You know, that's kind of what you do. They make an appointment. And you know what I do? I tell myself what they're coming to see me for. Oh, I know what they want to see me for. I know what they want to complain about this time. I got their number. And by the time they come in, I'm all armed and ready. And they come in and say, hey, I just want to tell you how much your sermons have been meaning to me. Oh, wow, you know. What I do, I told myself a story, right? Now, here's the problem. When you tell yourself a story, you believe it. When you tell yourself a story about someone, you believe it. And if you believe it, you will always react and respond to that person based on the story you told yourself. That's what Eli does. Look what he does. Look at it. He tells himself a story. She's drunk. So what does he do? Verse number 14. Eli said to her, how long will you make yourself drunk, woman? Put away your wine. What does Eli do? He responds to her not based on the truth, but based on the story he told himself about her. He misjudges her. He rebukes her, not based on the truth, but based on the story he told himself. Ladies and gentlemen, we will always influence people negatively when we tell ourselves stories about them when we don't really know what the situation is. That's what Eli does. Hannah replies, verse 15, "No, my Lord, I'm a woman oppressed in spirit. I've drunk neither wine nor strong drink. I poured out my soul before the Lord. Please do not consider your maidservant worthless." He made her feel worthless, didn't he? "For I've spoken until now out of my great concern." Now at this point, verse 17, I'm so disappointed in Eli. Because you would think the next words out of Eli's mouth will be, "I owe you a huge apology. I'm so sorry. Now tell me, what is it that's causing the pain and the hurt? How can I help you? How can I pray for you?" No. He just gives a normal greeting. "Oh, well, go in peace. Go in peace. I hope God gives you what you need." We could talk about him more, but I don't want to. But look at verse 18. Look at verse 18. Right after that happens, she said to him, "Let your maidservant find favor in your sight." And so the woman, Hannah, went back to the feast and ate. And look at this last phrase. "And her face was no longer sad." Now I got a question. Did any of her circumstances change? Was she still barren? Yeah. Was she still seen by others as cursed? Yes. Was there still a second wife in the home? Yes. Was her husband still insensitive? Oh, somebody said, "Oh, yeah." Right? Did the other woman still verbally abuse her? No doubt. Her circumstances did not change. So why does she go from greatly distressed and weeping bitterly to her face no longer being sad? Here's why. Ready? I know it sounds trite, but it's not. Her hurt turned to hope when her problem turned to prayer. Your hurt can only turn to hope. If in your mind your hurt can only turn to hope if the circumstances change, you may be in for a long trip. But if you want your hope to come even though your circumstances don't change, the key is to pour out your heart to the Lord, turn your problems into prayer, and listen, trust the sovereignty of the Lord of hosts. Peace is not God fixes your problem. Peace is you trust a sovereign God even when your hurt is multiplied. I have more. I'm out of time, so I'm going to give you some homework. I want you to read verses 19 through 28, and let me give you the 3 points. I'm not going to comment. You can read on your own. I see 3 things that happen once Hannah, her hurt turns to hope, when her problems turn to prayer. 3 things happen. Number 1, in verse 19, the worship of God becomes greater. You will never worship God. I know I said I was going to comment, didn't I? You will never worship God more than when you can trust him in your hurt. Number 2, the work of God becomes more evident in her life. And number 3, the will of God becomes accepted. The worship of God becomes greater. The work of God becomes evident. The will of God becomes accepted. And her hurt turns to hope when her problems turn to prayer. Would you bow with me for prayer right now? Oh, God of angel armies. Wow. To think that we can pour out our hurt to the God of angel armies. That's incredible. So I pray, God, because I'm sure there are many people, many people listening right now who are experiencing deep, deep hurt. And I pray, God, that as they trust your sovereignty, they would see their hurt turn to hope as their problems turn to prayer. And I just want to pause right now. And I just want to pray for anybody who's listening to me right now who's struggling with infertility. That is real in the story. And that's enough hurt for a lifetime. I just pray for your grace in their lives. And I pray all of these things in Jesus' name. Amen.